Hello and good afternoon to you. I'm Mitch McCoy here at KRK4 Fox 16 in Little Rock, and we have been following a developing story related to COVID-19, but this one does not involve humans. An interesting discovery made just this week by Arkansas health officials along with the U of A System Division of Agriculture as officials announce the first house cat has tested positive for COVID-19. And this is not the first house cat in the United States, but it is the first house cat in the U.S. And I want to get to my guest this afternoon. I want to look over at the screen here. I want to make sure I have the title right because you've certainly earned all of the ranks here. Dr. Heidi Ward, extension veterinarian for the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. She's also an integral part of One Health Arkansas. Doctor, thank you for your time this afternoon. We know it was last minute.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, an interesting discovery made this week in Central Arkansas, the first house cat testing positive for COVID-19. Kind of walk us through how this discovery was made.
Well, first, a little distinction. COVID-19 is actually what we reserve for the disease caused by the virus, and the virus is SARS-CoV-2 or CoV-2, and that is what was positive for this cat, was for that virus.
Interesting. So, what does this mean for folks that might just be getting an alert on their phone, maybe a Facebook message? What does this mean for cat owners?
Well, certainly no need to panic. We do know that humans can pass the virus to animals. There is still no evidence as to date that the virus can be transferred from animals to humans. And there has been a lot of data collected over this past year, and that holds true. Whether the new strains will be different, that's something we'll find out. But as of now, we've had approximately 90 animals in the United States that have tested positive for the virus. In every case, these animals had close contact with a human who was positive for COVID-19. Of those 90, about half did not have any symptoms at all. It was just a precautionary measure that the animals were tested. And the other half had symptoms that were mainly respiratory. And so they do become symptomatic, some of them, half of them. And then a small percent, about 11%, may develop some gastrointestinal signs. So it was similar to what we have, but not near to the extent of what humans get with this virus.
And the cat here in Arkansas, was the cat symptomatic?
The cat was symptomatic and was seeing the veterinarian, and I don't have any information on the specifics, but the veterinarian was intelligent enough to think, hey, this could be possibly COVID. Let's send in the test to IDEX. IDEX is the only veterinary company that I know of that does perform a test for this virus in animal samples, but it came back positive and confirmed to the Arkansas Department of Health to let them know. And now we have our one cat in Arkansas that's adding to the data of what animals and this virus, how they interact with humans.
And the first animal, is it possible that there were other cats before that had the virus that they weren't tested? I mean, this is the first known case.
Yes, there's also been dogs that have tested positive in the United States. And it's just a matter of, part of that is that many of them, as I stated, half of them that were positive were not symptomatic. And that, I mean, who's going to take their animal to a veterinarian if they're not sick? And that's not a routine test. And we still do not recommend that we send in samples from healthy, non-symptomatic animals. The only time that we would consider that is if the owner is definitely positive for COVID. The recommendation now is if you are positive for COVID, that you distance yourself from your pets, cats, dogs, definitely I would say ferrets as well, because we do know that there's been a huge problem with the mink population, and they're in the same family as ferrets. So being very diligent in keeping away from your pets. And also, if you do have a pet that is positive, to keep that pet isolated from other pets. And that is because we do not know if they can transfer the virus to other animals, even though we do know that they don't transfer it to humans. So it's always good to know, if you do have a positive pet, have them quarantined, just like we would be quarantined for the full 2 weeks.
Well, and it's interesting. What's the cool part about doing live streams like this is we get to see some of the questions come in from viewers who are watching online. And I want to get to a question because it is an interesting perspective, and a lot of people have this question. I certainly do. Alexa wants to know, if we can give it to animals, why can't they give it to us? She says it just doesn't make sense to her.
That's the nature of the virus and how it interacts. And part of it, and that just goes back to what basic virology, that viruses are not actually living organisms, and we don't think of them as a living organism because they are not a cell. They're just genetic material packed in a protein coat. We call them little genetic machines. And the only way that they can divide and replicate is to basically hijack animal cells. And not just animal cells, by the way, there are some viruses that attack bacteria. So that's an interesting fact. I won't go into that, but the difference is the animal cell. So every animal cell has a different makeup on the outside of little protein markers. And it just so happens that this SARS-CoV-2 virus really targets our cells, human cells, specifically in the lung. That allows it to get in and take over those cells, so it can use the cell's machinery to make more virus. And it may be that the animals just don't have many of these surface proteins on those cells, or maybe it's just a different form to where the virus can't really get in there and replicate as much, to where it can be shed a new virus to infect humans. So that is a possibility. There is just the difference between a dog cell versus a cat cell. And by the way, that's what makes viruses species specific in the first place. I mean, there are a plethora of coronaviruses out there that in the veterinary community we deal with all the time concerning cats, dogs, and our farm animals. And there may be that the animals also have some partial immunity to the SARS virus as well.
So interesting. And a lot of that just comes down to, this is such a new virus that health experts and veterinarians like yourself, you guys are still exploring this virus. For viewers just joining us this afternoon, I want to welcome Dr. Heidi Ward. She's a veterinarian at the U of A System Division of Agriculture. She's also a part of One Health Arkansas. Doctor, so just some interesting questions coming in across Facebook, and of course we can't get to all of them, but what is your take? Is it possible that these house cats will now have antibodies for COVID-19? That's one of the questions being asked on Facebook.
Wow, that is a very good question. I haven't seen any data on that. That's interesting. I don't know. I do not know.
And a lot of that's just because this virus is so new, and you guys are still doing a bunch of research on it as well at the research labs. My next question for you is, folks at home might be thinking, oh no, I have COVID-19. Maybe I was around my dog. I've been, snuggled up with the cat. What should they do moving forward?
Well, again, not to worry. If they are worried, call their veterinarian. And most veterinary clinics are curbside only right now. And of course, we don't want a COVID positive person to be leaving their house, right? Because they're quarantined, or possibly a COVID positive animal going to the veterinary clinic where there's other animals, because we don't know if it could transfer to other animals, right? So usually that can be handled in a telemedicine call. The current recommendations is just monitor the animals, because I said, only half of them develop symptoms, and of those half, all of them have made recoveries. No major incidents. It's more mild, some moderate if they do develop a cough that's distressing to them. But my basic underlying message to owners of pets that are people are positive with COVID is just distance yourself from your animals. Distance yourself from the animals. And again, that doesn't mean you have to lock yourself in the room or lock them in a room. Just none of the normal lovey pets and kisses. Just keep that distance, again, a 6-foot distance from them. And just make sure that you Oh no, did I freeze?
You froze just a little bit, but we got the basis of the point there, doctor, and that is don't panic. You know, just create distance and you know, try and do your best to do that. I want to remind folks that the governor's weekly COVID-19 briefing is coming up in less than an hour. You can watch it right here on the device that you're watching. Doctor, what if somebody just joined us and they're reading the headline, First Arkansas House Cat Confirmed with COVID-19, what's the big takeaway from all of this? And what should people do tonight, if there's anything different they should do?
The big takeaway is simply if you've been, and this goes for the human side too, if you've been exposed to someone who was positive for COVID-19, if you've been in a situation where you weren't protected and you weren't wearing a mask and you're within that 6 feet barrier of someone for longer than 15 minutes, then that may be the time to get tested for COVID. And if you are tested and are positive, to distance yourself from your pets because you can give the virus to your pets.
Dr. Heidi Ward from the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. She is a veterinarian. She's also part of One Health Arkansas. Doctor, thank you so much. We know this virus is constantly on the move, and you guys are doing everything you can in the fight against this virus, and now doing research as we learn that the first house cat has COVID. Anything else we should be watching for this week? We know that you guys are constantly doing stuff related to the coronavirus.
Well, I think the focus right now is finding out if we have those new strains of the coronavirus here in the United States. The new strains from South Africa and also from Brazil, because they have some potential new challenges that we will have to study. So that's the focus that we have right now, but it's the same as always, to wear a mask and a social distance and don't go anywhere unless you have to, and wash those hands all the time.
Dr. Heidi Ward, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We appreciate it. We want to thank her for her time, and just to recap for folks just joining us at this hour, we are following that developing story, the first Arkansas house cat confirmed with COVID-19. Of course, this is something that if you missed any part of our stream today, you can go to our website, krk.com, fox16.com. You can watch the entire stream in its entirety. Also on Facebook, and if there are any updates to this story, we will certainly pass it along to you. And a reminder again, the governor's weekly COVID-19 briefing is coming up at 1:30, so we're just about 50 minutes away, and you can watch that right here on our website and right here on Facebook, the device that you're watching. For now, I'm Mitch McCoy. Thanks for watching. We have breaking news as it happens all day long right here on the device that you're watching. Have a good rest of your afternoon.